We found footage of what Dark Cloud's legendary beta disc looked like, among other amazing beta discoveries, all found for the first time in this exclusive documentary. Stay tuned.
Hidden Castle's Dark Cloud Compendium.
Welcome to the Compendium. My name's Hidden Castle, and I'll be your guide. As the autumn breeze begins to claim the leaves from trees, the sepia-toned days of summer give in to the earth tones of September. In the sky, the two moons of harvest shine bright. This amber-soaked season often reminds me of Dark Cloud's earliest beta and Tokyo Game Show 1999, as it was a period in which many groundbreaking video games were revealed to the public, setting the stage of what was to come for the new millennium of digital entertainment. Those who attended Tokyo Game Show 1999 recount that the weather was less than ideal as it was pouring rain. Imagine the pitter-patter of raindrops and the excitement of the public filling the crisp autumn air, the perfect setting for dark clouds to emerge. It was on this fateful day that journalists from across the globe gathered in the Makuhari Messe Convention Center in Tokyo to see what lies ahead for the new millennium of entertainment and hardware. This deep dive video will focus on analyzing Dark Cloud's earliest beta and its worldwide premiere, its booth at Tokyo Game Show, the beta and removed content, musical changes, developer interviews regarding Dark Cloud's beta, and even looking at how different journalists reported on Dark Cloud, among smaller aspects of this historic event. With that being said, my name's Hidden Castle, and let's take a trip in our Compendium time machine to head back to 1999. Interestingly, our story doesn't actually begin in 99, rather in 1998 with Level 5's inception and how the company came to be. Level 5 refers to the company which created and developed Dark Cloud and Dark Chronicle. The company was founded in October 1998 through receiving funding from Sony Computer Entertainment with the purposes of creating a next-generation RPG that can showcase the power of the upcoming PlayStation 2 system. The company's name bears some symbolism, as the 5 in Level 5 stands for 5-star software. In a 2018 interview, it was revealed that Level 5 was initially founded to be a subsidiary of Sony. Essentially, what this would mean is that they'd make games exclusively for Sony consoles. However, this changed over time, as they now have a healthy relationship with both Nintendo and Sony, as well as self-publishing their own titles in Japan. Akihiro Hino is a creator of Dark Cloud and the founder of Level 5, and its sole president for over 20 years. Growing up, he was inspired by games like Dragon Quest and Wizardry. These games would later go on to influence his creative work at Level 5. He began his career in video games working at River Hill Soft, creating games for the ill-fated Panasonic 3DO. He would later go on to leave that company in pursuit of creating his dream game. That game was Dark Cloud. Allow me to set the stage. During the year of 1999, the original PlayStation saw release of some truly generation-defining games. Titles such as The Legend of Dragoon, The Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver, Ape Escape, Silent Hill, and even some obscure titles like Monster Rancher 2 that still managed to leave a lasting impression. All of these were truly landmark titles. The original PlayStation was dominating the competition for the entire generation and managed to become a global icon, one that showed no signs of stopping anytime soon. However, September was also eventful for the competition, as it saw release of exciting new hardware with the Sega Dreamcast, which boasted a game-changing launch lineup of hit games. It was certainly a success for the time being. Could the Dreamcast loosen PlayStation's grasp on the market? However, unbeknownst to Sega, Sony had an ace up their sleeve, one that would ensure that they would start the new millennium strong, and that was the global reveal of the PlayStation 2. This all came ahead at Tokyo Game Show 1999. Up until this point, no video game console was ever revealed at a Tokyo Game Show, marking the PlayStation 2's reveal as somewhat special. Among other titles revealed for the show-stopping PlayStation 2 was a little gem from an unproven development studio by the name of Level 5. This earliest showing of Dark Cloud's beta took the audience by surprise, and many were blown away by the true-to-life graphics and innovative user customization, two aspects of the game that made their way to the final release. Now the show floor for Tokyo Game Show was split up by video game publisher and developer. For example, you had booths for Konami and Sega. What made the PlayStation 2 booth truly stand out were these beautiful marquees, signifying where each game was for those who wish to play. In fact, this event was open to the public, meaning that there's actually some lucky people out there that played this very early version of Dark Cloud, which is bonkers. Dark Cloud was represented on the show floor with a booth right next to other anticipated PlayStation 2 games. In fact, Dark Cloud is actually placed right next to Tekken Tag Tournament. It was at Dark Cloud's booth where players were given the rare chance to get some hands-on time with this demo. And unfortunately, it breaks my heart to say this, fellow castles, but in our Compendium time machine, the closest thing we can get to playing this demo is watching video footage, which was created by Level 5 and Sony. To make matters worse, this trailer giving us a brief look at Dark Cloud's earliest beta was never really translated into English, leaving many fans from around the world to speculate about what was going on with this historic demonstration of Dark Cloud in its earliest phase of development. However, every Dark Cloud has a silver lining. In 2019, Kai and myself took the liberties of translating Dark Cloud's debut reveal trailer. Now, after 20 years, fans from all around the world could finally understand the contents of this trailer. Let's take a look. When looking back at Dark Cloud's earliest beta demonstration, it's clear to see that although many differences took place between the concept and creation phase, the larger themes presented in this beta can still be seen in the released version of the game. Notably, the world map and the titular Georama system both make their debut, albeit looking very different than what we're used to seeing. Now, there's a plethora of other small differences, and it's not unusual for video games to undergo a metamorphosis when being developed. Akihiro Hino, the creator of Dark Cloud, even touched on this 1999 beta and the evolution that later took place. During a 2003 RPG Fan web interview, Hino directly addressed the changes this demo went through as well as the cut content. Quote, "In the case of Dark Cloud, it was a special project because we made some things that eventually didn't appear in the game. We needed this demo to research the capabilities of the PlayStation 2. In the end, it had a good impact on Dark Cloud." At the PlayStation 2 announcement on March 2nd, 1999, Ken Kutaragi used it for his presentation. It was a demo showing a magic carpet flying through a valley, as well as some water effects. End quote. Essentially, what Hino was saying is that the team used this demonstration to learn about programming on PlayStation 2 hardware in a hands-on way. But is that all this demo was? Well, that's not quite, as this beta demo was available to be played by the public at Tokyo Game Show. So there definitely was a playable component to this demo. It wasn't all cinematics. With that being said, it's time to discuss our world-famous restaurant-quality beta content, and we'll begin by discussing the Magic Carpet Ride and Tone's beta design. This Magic Carpet Ride was prominently shown off during the event, as well as Tone having a different design altogether. This Magic Carpet would have allowed Tone to travel to different areas in the game, notably to the floating continent, which the player would have been responsible for bringing this floating landmass back to the Earth. In an IGN interview published in September 1999, they confirmed that this magic carpet would have been used to travel back and forth from Tone's island floating in the sky to nearby villages, and that the player would have been able to trade information with villagers and gain allies on his quest. I think that's really interesting, being able to trade information with villagers. Perhaps that was a mechanic that was planned to be in Dark Cloud but scrapped later on down the line. Interestingly, Level 5 was questioned in the year 2000 on why the magic carpet was removed from Dark Cloud, especially after it was prominently shown, along with all the other differences that took place between 1999 and 2000. Dark Cloud's producer Kentaro Motomura stated, quote, "Due to the lack of time, some functions and characteristics of Dark Cloud have been abandoned, such as Tone moving in a flying carpet, the ability to jump, some zooms, dynamic flights, and the possibilities of building volcanoes. In addition, the design of Tone has been reviewed since a demonstration of September 1999. Don't forget that the first demo was a technical demo for the PlayStation 2, and Level 5 therefore wanted to display a maximum potential in order to push the PlayStation 2 to its limits." End quote. However, there is a small reference to the magic carpet in the Japanese version of Dark Cloud, as the backfloor item for Dark Heaven Castle. The flapping duster allows the player to ride on a magic carpet into an ominous painting. What makes this even more tragic was that this reference was unable to be seen by international players, as the flapping duster was not accessible in those versions of the game. What can you say? It's a shame all around. These changes go further than what we can physically see with our hidden castle eyes, as the story of Dark Cloud differed in this point in time as well. Interestingly, this demo didn't show any story cutscenes. Rather, the story outline was provided by Sony and Level 5 to the gaming journalists. Let's read through this beta story outline and learn something new. The story attached to the floating continent. Notably, in the earliest incarnation of Dark Cloud, the Dark Genie decided to only destroy Tone's village rather than destroying many, like how he did in the final version of the game. An IGN article written by Douglas Perry describes this early version of the story, and it reads as follows. Dark Cloud stars a young and innocent but adventurous boy who must return this strange floating piece of land back to its original place, presumably on the Earth. With one exception, his task isn't that difficult. He knows how to land his giant hovering island, but removing the evil kingdom that's uprooted and replaced his future village is much more challenging than it may seem. Traveling back and forth from his island in the sky to nearby villages, the young central character trades information and gains allies on his quest. End quote. It seems that this early version of the story would have been much more personal between Tone and the Dark Genie, as it seems that the rest of the world was unaffected. This would have been interesting to see, as there's an early incarnation of Darkhaven Castle being described as the evil kingdom which uprooted his village, so perhaps we would have been introduced to the Darkhaven Castle at the very beginning of the game as well. Now, the story of Dark Cloud isn't the only aspect that went through changes throughout its development, as the world map also bears significant differences. This can even give us a clue on what kind of world Level 5 wanted to build for this ambitious title. When the map was showed off, it illustrated a very different world for Tone and his friends to explore. What's interesting is that the little details in the map were actually animated, such as the clouds around the floating continent, the water waves of the seaside town, and even the smokestacks of the desert village. In comparison, the maps seen in Dark Cloud or even the sequel Dark Cloud 2 Dark Chronicle feature no animation at all. With that being said, this is a deep dive video after all, and I wouldn't be Hidden Castle if I didn't go as deep as possible. So, let's take the time to analyze this beta map, as it can give us a very interesting look at the towns and villages that we're familiar with in their earliest beta incarnations. When looking at the beta and final maps side by side, we can see that Queens is in the same map position all the way to the far left. However, this is where the differences begin to show. While the final version of Queens places an emphasis on the shipwreck and the leaning tower, this early version of Queens has large boats docked along the side, cementing its place as a port town, even during the early beta. Notably, there's an aquatic shrine in the place of where a shipwreck would be on the final version of the map, so perhaps this Aqua Shrine was the initial idea for Queens' dungeon before the team shifted the concept into shipwreck. Personally, I think that's really interesting, as maybe it would have been an aquatic version of the Sun and Moon Temple. Now, speaking of the Sun and Moon Temple, below Queens is what seems to be the desert village of Muskalaka. Interesting how even in the earliest beta version, these two villages were always intended to be visited by the player side by side. What's curious about this desert area is that it features a large spire-like structure. Perhaps this was an early version of the Sun and Moon Temple, however, it also resembles a demon shaft. In the creative process, it's not uncommon for designs to evolve over time, so maybe they reused this idea for the demon shaft later on. Now, during the Tokyo Game Show event, several journalists noted that the floating continent that Tone would have visited was his actual town, or what it used to be at least, and that the genie put his dark castle in the place of where Norun Village used to be. This gives us a look at the origin of Darkhaven Castle. Now, the design of the castle is interesting, as there's a lot more dome-like structures placed at the top, as opposed to the angular emblem that we're all used to seeing. Now, we know that on this beta map, the castle's placement was where Norun Village initially used to be. Now, right above the castle is a lush forest environment. Now, it's interesting, as this forest area which evolved into Matsutake Village actually changed placement. Instead of being below the Darkhaven Castle in Norun Village, it's now above. Now, it has to be mentioned, there are some other mysteries in regards to this beta map, ones that, for the sake of time, I'll be covering in a later video. It's hard to tell if the team at level 5 only worked on Brownboo Village and the floating continent, or if they went all out and started creating 3D models and assets for all these other areas. We talked about Dark Cloud's villages long enough, let's touch on Dark Cloud's beta Georama system. The Georama system really helped Dark Cloud stand out among its contemporaries on the PlayStation 2, especially during the PlayStation 2's worldwide reveal, as the feature was praised by critics. It would only make sense that the Georama system and its menus went through a few revisions. The first and earliest revision of the Georama menu was showed off at Tokyo Game Show 1999, and it featured a much more robust Georama menu in comparison to what we see in the final version of the game, with whole features being removed, such as Georama sections dedicated to placing different terrains, rolling hills, and towering landscapes. Sections for environmental objects such as volcanoes and trees, sections for brick houses, and 2 unknown sections, but the final section is the most interesting, as it would have gave you the option of saving a village, loading a village's building placement, or even uploading your village online for others to play. Now this would have been a groundbreaking feature had it shipped with the final version of the game. And this brings us to the second version of the Georama menu, which is much more simplistic, perhaps even more simplistic to what we see in the final version of the game. This Georama menu was created when the team at level 5 were told to scale back the scope of the Georama system by their publisher Sony. As such, it's much more simple looking than what we saw in the Tokyo Game Show demo, or even what we have in the final version of the game. Ultimately, I'm glad that we got the Georama that we have in the final version of the game, but I wouldn't be lying when I say that I honestly look at the Tokyo Game Show's Georama and I just think of the infinite possibilities, the creativity of the players, and what we could have done with this more robust, amazing Georama system. One can only imagine. During Dark Cloud's development, the team experimented with having an online mode where players could collaborate with one another and even upload their world. This was revealed to be in the plans as early as a Tokyo Game Show demo of 1999. In fact, during the event Comdex 1999, PlayStation spokesperson Phil Harrison demonstrated this very early version of Dark Cloud and even briefly discussed the online capabilities of the title. Take a look.
Developed in Japan, and you can see here that once again everything being created in real time. This is not a movie. The cloth dynamic being calculated in real time on the magic carpet, the hair blowing through the wind of the boy, the wind blowing through the clothes that he wears. Now this world allows you to create not only the environment that you explore, but the characters that you meet as well. And ultimately, in a broadband world, the people that you meet will be real.
Now, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the beta music shown off in Dark Cloud's demo. What's interesting is that 2 musical tracks can be heard in the 1999 beta that made their way to the final version of the game, and those 2 tracks are early versions of Departure and The Land of Hope. Now these 2 songs are quite curious indeed, as they bear a bigger significance to Dark Cloud's earliest beta, specifically The Land of Hope and Departure. Now let's start with the names of the song. Departure. Now this song plays when Tone is on his magic carpet flying through the valleys and canyons, making his way to the floating continent. Now we know in the Tokyo Game Show demo that once the Dark Genie attacked Tone's village, everyone gathered into Brown Boo Village temporarily, as Tone's job was to restore the floating continent back to the Earth. The floating continent being the Land of Hope. Now it's interesting how these 2 songs are some of the earliest songs played in Dark Cloud's history. However, they're only only played twice in the final version of the game, with Departure playing at the very start of the game, and the Land of Hope later on playing when Tone makes his way to Yellow Drops. Now perhaps this is due to these two songs being made specifically for the Tokyo Game Show demo. Again, remember the name of the song, Departure, and Tone going on his magic carpet ride, and the Land of Hope, the floating continent. It just kind of makes sense, and perhaps that's why these songs were used so sparingly in the final version of the game. And maybe it's due to these two songs being made specifically for the earliest beta, Tokyo Game Show 1999. And that concludes our time traveling escapade back to Tokyo Game Show 1999, and this documentary's analysis of Dark Cloud's earliest beta. I created this documentary with the hopes of it being the most comprehensive collection of Dark Cloud's 1999 beta information, gathering countless obscure facts that have been lost to time in one convenient video, with the hopes of making this rare information more accessible to other fans of this amazing series. Taking a step back out of our Compendium time machine, it's bizarre to look at this event after 20 years and think about everything that was shown off here, and the impact that it would later have on us growing up. From the countless hours we spent in our childhoods experiencing the libraries of consoles like the PlayStation 2, or how a little game from a fledgling studio like Level 5 managed to not only carve out a place in video game history, but also in the hearts and minds of countless video game players, both new and old, from all around the world, even after 20 years. It's funny, the art that we enjoy as children during our early years can really influence us into the adults who we are today, even if we don't think about it. Our passions, goals, and even sometimes our worldview. I always say, the Dark Cloud community is the most passionate and amazing community out there. However, one thing is apparent. This documentary can also serve as a cautionary tale as time fades, even legend. A reminder that if we don't preserve information, as obscure as it may be, it could be at risk of being lost to the ebb and flow of time forever. With that being said, one thing that won't be lost anytime soon is our passion for this industry, as the years go by and the seasons carry their transitions. No matter how many years we lived up till now, no matter how many years we have yet to live, right now is a moment that we have. Let's continue to make memories. With that being said, thank you for visiting the Compendium. My name's Hidden Castle, and I hope you have a great day. Take care.
Many thanks go out to these amazing Compendium patrons. Without them, our Compendium wouldn't be possible. Anna,
Sundial Shark,
Jamie Jackson,
Story Lover,
JP German,
Weeb Warrior,
Ryan Shevin,
GD Break,
Trash Cats,
Ronin395,
Raposa,
Liam the Dark Cloud Beta 7. And many thanks to Compendium allies throughout the years in our very own Dark Cloud community. Thank you. Without you, it just wouldn't be the same, would it? And many thanks to our Moon Sea Mega Supporter GD Break, who has a message for the Dark Cloud community. Moon Sea Mega Supporter GD Break wishes that the Dark Cloud community has a great rest of the year. Thank you, GD Break. Thank you to my patrons and viewers alike, and I hope you all enjoyed this video. It took about 3 years to create this little documentary about Dark Cloud's earliest Tokyo Game Show 1999 build, but this information is lost no more. Thanks to the Dark Cloud community.